Good evening. Here we go again. Well, I'd contemplated not doing a video tonight because I'm so disgusted with the Democratic Party and their instant coronation of Kamala Harris. And I thought, I should probably touch on that so we can look back at this in 3.5 months and say, Packard, you were right again. They should listen to you. Excuse me. My allergies. I'll tell you, every time I go for a walk out here, this time of the year, it's not so good. Anyways, so today they said that Kamala Harris raised $100 million in 24 hours. They already had a campaign treasury with about that much money in it. And they said that these donations were all from small donors. A lot of them are people who have never donated to a campaign before. So there's like this pent-up energy there, people waiting until Biden stepped aside. So that was a positive thing for her. Apparently she made a campaign speech that went real well, had a really big crowd. Nobody shot at her, which is a good thing. And now I think she's already got like 2,000 pledged delegates. I've said they're going to vote for her. And I think there's 4,700 delegates, so she's close to having enough. Put her over the top before the convention. So sounds like it's pretty much of a done deal. My gripe, I got two gripes. One of them is her resume, and the other one, of course, is the process that they use. So we'll talk about the process first. Joe Biden. The reason we're giving Joe Biden the boot is because there's a general consensus that he is in cognitive decline. So he announces his retirement, and 20 minutes later puts out a letter that he's endorsing Kamala Harris. So this guy that we all saw on June the 27th stumble and fall on his face, he gets to say who's going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party, the guy that we just gave the boot to because we're saying he's on the downhill slope. We're supposed to take his judgment. Boom. And Kamala Harris gets the benefit of that. And so far, I don't think Obama has endorsed her. But I don't think that's going to make much difference. I think he'll probably wait until the convention, and then he'll make some dramatic entrance into the convention, him and Michelle, and they'll endorse her then. So I just think it's so wrong the way the process should have been, and I talked about it before. There should have been a series of town hall meetings where the people who wanted to participate and aspired to be a nominee would have a chance to show us who they are. Kamala Harris, she's not going through the fire. Her feet are not being held to the fire so we can see how she performs under pressure. Every time I've ever seen her, she's been on a teleprompter. I don't know if she can speak on her feet or not. I don't know how she is when she's under pressure. She was on the debate stage in 2020, but that didn't last very long because she dropped out before the first primary. There's that about her. Then there's the skeletons in her closet, and they're already starting. Fox Corporation is already on them. Got a script going. When she was 29 years old, she was shacking up with a guy by the name of Willie Brown, who was like the Speaker of the House in California, congressperson. Kind of a gadfly of a type of person, controversial, did a lot of shady deals, etc. So she's got that, and then apparently when she was Attorney General, she did some stuff that wasn't real popular. I don't know the details of it yet, but I saw a replay of video of the 2020 debates, and Tulsi Gabbard ran down a couple of these things to Kamala's face, and Kamala just stood there like stone. She couldn't answer. Tulsi Gabbard just took her apart. So there's that. And then the other thing is, and I hate to say this, but since I'm darn near a native Californian, having moved here when I was 5 years old, there are parts of the country, there's people in the country that just hate California. They hate it. They've never been here. They don't know anybody here. But there's this rep that California has that's just negative. And I mean, it's all over the United States. You'll find people that just hate, you don't want to drive around with a California license plate. They don't like you. They don't like San Francisco. That's where Nancy Pelosi's from. They don't like all of the homeless people that we have here. They don't like all of the crime that we have here. They don't like Hollywood. They don't like Gavin Newsom. Kamala Harris was a senator from here and the attorney general. So there's that stuck on her back. So I'm just saying that she's a very flawed candidate. You know, everybody's like all gung-ho right now. They're all high on it. But let's wait after about 2 or 3 weeks of Fox Corporation beating the crap out of her. You know, and the rest of the media too. And then it's too late. We're not going to be able to change again, so we're stuck with what we got. So, the only thing that I can think of that's going to save her is if she debates Trump. I think she'll do real well in that, because she was a prosecutor. We'll see how she does. She's a very rehearsed type of a person, and in those situations, I don't think you should be rehearsed. You ought to be spontaneous. But she's a pretty good speaker. And of course, he's 78 years old. I don't know what she is. She's got to be 50, 55 or so. And she's still very eloquent, speaks very well. So I think she could do well in that format if he'll debate her. I don't think he'll debate her because he doesn't have anything to gain by doing that. So there's that. And the other thing is, if she uses some wisdom and picks a really strong running mate, that could really help her. And of course, I've suggested for president, Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona. And he's on the list. Apparently, she's got it down to a couple people. Him and, what's his name, Josh Shapiro from, he's the governor of Pennsylvania. So, the thing about Mark Kelly is he is older. He's pushing 60. He's bald-headed. You know, he's not an unattractive man or anything, but he's bald like me, and that doesn't show vigor. You know, you got to have hair. So he's going to be what he is. I haven't heard him speak, so I don't know how good of a speaker he is, but he's got a couple of things going for him. Number one, he is a senator from Arizona, which is a very conservative state. Arizona is an open carry state, so the NRA couldn't have too much trouble with him. He was an astronaut, and he was a naval captain. Those are all real good things on your resume. So I'm hoping that she picks him. And obviously, if it's her, I'm going to support her, naturally, because we got to beat Godzilla and do the best we can. But this system of picking the candidate has got to be reformed. Otherwise, there's going to be another party filled with people that, you know, the independent registered voters in this country has really grown over the last 20 years because we're fed up with the two parties since they're controlled by money and God, old people. Look at the Democrats, you know. Nancy Pelosi, she's in her 80s. Chuck Schumer, he's pushing 80. The Clintons, they're in their late 70s. Maxine Waters is like 85 years old. So, got to get some young blood in there. Some vibrant, barrel young blood. So what are we at? We are at 9 minutes. Let's see, is there anything else on my mind tonight? I was thinking about movies that I've watched that I really like. I thought of a list of them. Let me name off a few. You've probably already seen them. But if you haven't, you should check them out. I think at the top of my list is Forrest Gump. That movie has everything. It's got comedy, it's got tragedy. It's just an amazing story. I love it. Dances with Wolves, I think, is a great, great movie. And I think I mentioned the movie Network the other night. That's a terrific movie. Here's one that's kind of odd. It's got a lot of violence in it. I'm not sure that it's certainly not for kids. The movie is called Joker, and it's starring Joaquin Phoenix. And I mean, it's just, I've never seen anything like it. He got the Academy Award for it, and I think he probably got Best Picture. It came out right when the pandemic started. So that was a kind of tough time to release a movie, but boy, his performance in that is just phenomenal. Another movie that he was in that was so great, along with Russell Crowe, was Gladiator. That's a terrific movie. Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood, fabulous movie. Another Clint Eastwood movie, $1 Million Baby. That's a fabulous movie. Shawshank Redemption, terrific movie. Book was written by Stephen King and then made into a movie. So those are a few of the movies that are definitely in my top 10 list. And another one that I was thinking about is The Godfather. That was a terrific movie. And there's a scene in The Godfather that I think about occasionally in reference to events that happen in the news. And there's this one scene where one of the Godfather's street lieutenants comes to Robert Duvall, he plays the attorney for the Godfather. I think they call him concierge. Maybe that's Italian for lawyer. So the street lieutenant comes to him and he says, I have some bad news to give the Godfather. Should I give it to him now or should we wait? And Robert Duvall says, the Godfather insists on having bad news right away. And I think that's applicable to so much of what's happening in the political world these days, that the people who were close to Biden, who kind of sheltered him from the press, man, we should have known about this at least a year ago. And probably, when he announced, before he announced, it should have been made public, and the people that work there should have just, threatened to resign. Of course, they wouldn't do that because it's such a cush job. So we got the bad news kind of late. And the funny thing is that Biden was the one who insisted on that debate. And I can imagine his staff going, God, I hope he gets through this without a meltdown. And then they sat there and watched it, and it was a disaster from the get-go. Just kept getting worse. I guess the last 10 minutes or so weren't too bad, but no, that's going to go down in the history books as the biggest political blunder in the history of our country. So that was the bad news. They should have given it to him a long time before and saved us so much grief. And now we're stuck with the person that he picked for his vice presidential running mate, and he picked to succeed himself. That's a crazy system. That's not democracy. Okay. On that happy note, I'm trying to think if I have a joke for you tonight. Yeah, I got one. It's kind of a silly one. I don't know if you could tell this to your kids. There's no swear words in it or anything, but they might not get it. So there's these two guys. They're good buddies. They grow up together, and they have a mutual love for basketball. When they're in school, they play it on the teams, and then, of course, when they get out, they follow basketball. They got their favorite NBA teams, and they get married, and they're starting to get a little bit older. So they have a conversation one night. One of the guys says, hey, this is Joe. He says, look, we're getting older, and if one of us dies before the other one, if there's any way that he can get back news to the guy that's still alive as to whether or not there's basketball in heaven. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Okay. So sure enough, they get to be in their 80s. Finally, one of the guys passes away. And about a week later, Joe's walking down the street. I don't know why his name's Joe. I guess I've been thinking about Joe a lot lately. And he's getting older. So Joe's walking down the street and he hears this, "Psst, hey, Joe." And this is voice coming from behind a bush. And there is an apparition of Herman, his buddy Herman. This is me, it's me, Herman. Remember? And he's like in shock at first. Yeah, wow, man, what are you doing? And he says, don't you remember the promise that we made to each other that whoever died first, if he could, come back and tell the other guy whether or not there's basketball in heaven? And Joe says, oh yeah, I remember that. So, is there basketball in heaven? And he says, well, I got good news and I got bad news. Well, what's the good news? He says there's basketball in heaven 24/7. You can play in the games. You'll be on the NBA All-Star team. You can dunk. It's going to be incredible. You can watch it on TV all you want. It's fabulous. And he's thinking to himself, well, finally says, well, what could possibly be the bad news? And Herman says, you're starting in tomorrow night's game. Boo-hoo. Good night.